Hello, fellow Robo Capitals. Hope you're doing well. You know what's not doing well? Consumer confidence. It absolutely plunged in the most recent report. And on this channel, we've been trying to reconcile what is going on with the US economy. Because you look at nominal GDP, real GDP, and you're like, wow, it's running on all 8 cylinders. En fuego, baby. And then you look at the labor market, you're like, whoa, negative. Non-farm payrolls, that's in the no bueno zone. So which one is right? Well, it seems like this could have just changed everything, meaning that it really tilts things in the direction of the labor market versus real GDP. Let's get into the data and I'll show you what I'm referring to. Josh is MIA, probably swiping on Tinder or maybe Grindr, you decide. So I've got to run the action here all by myself. Switch it up, do a screen share, and we go over to the conference board. Here we go. The conference board, the latest press release. Now look at this chart. The starting point here is kind of an index. They index it from 100. And look at this. Plummet. We are at the lowest level in consumer confidence. And I know a lot of you are saying, oh, it's all about the Democrats, the Democrats. Yeah, I get it, how this is politically skewed. But when you look at the trend for the Republicans, it's doing the exact same thing. It's just from a higher point. So in aggregate total, the punchline is the consumer confidence index has gone down to its lowest point in 11 years. And that includes the cerveza sickness. So let me say that another way. Consumer confidence right now is lower than its lowest point during the cerveza sickness, when the government was locking you in a cage and shutting down the global economy. Let's keep going. So here's the present situation and expectations index. So present situation, you can see most people, it's a lot better. But first of all, look at the trend. And look, usually these things trend for quite some time. Like the last trend lasted 10 years. So, I mean, if this trend lasts 10 years as well, I mean, we're going to be right down where we were in the depths of the GFC recession, call it 2011, 2012, if the trend continues. So, and I don't know why it would just automatically reverse. Maybe it will, who knows? No certainties, only probabilities. But the point here with this chart is the present situation is better than expectations, but you can see how the gap is closing. That's another thing that I'd noticed. The trend is down and the gap is closing. Let's keep going. First thing I highlighted, all 5 components of the index deteriorated, driving the overall index to its lowest point since May of 2014, like we were saying earlier. Now, here is what everyone points to. Zero Hedge always says, oh, those stupid Democrats, they don't know how awesome the economy is. Or they're worried about inflation. They're worried about tariff inflation, those dumb rubes. Okay, fine. And I get it. That's a valid argument. But look at what's happening with the independents and look at what's happening with the Republicans. Again, since, let's say, retardation day, and you can see retardation day or liberation day, whatever they call it. It's everyone, oh my gosh, these tariffs are incredible. That means all these manufacturing jobs are coming back to the United States, which obviously hasn't happened, hasn't panned out. And it looks like all political parties were really excited that we were going to have all these high-paying manufacturing jobs coming back to the United States. But then when that doesn't really materialize and they realize that it's harder and harder and harder to pay rent, put food on the table, then kind of reality sets in. And it's setting in not just with the Democrats and the independents, but it's also setting in here with this lower trend line with Republicans. And with the exception of retardation day, it's low and then it's real, the bounce up here. We're at the lows going back to December 2024. Now here's when they break it down by generation. So my goodness, Gen X, I think that's my generation. Gen X is at the low. Geez, they're really struggling. I wonder if that's because of AI. Because you would think the jobs that are being taken away, all these white collar jobs and like coding and it's a lot of Gen Xers. I don't know. I'm just spitballing there. The Gen Z, they're the least concerned. That's probably because they're off. They're very young, and I don't know if they're ever concerned, that age group. The baby boomers, they're really worried as well. That's weird. They have all the assets. So you'd think that they'd be like, woohoo, Scrooge McDuck. But anyway, this is a breakdown of how it's looking by generation. And my generation looks like is the worst. They're really feeling it. Holy cow. So Peterson, I guess that's the guy or gal who puts together the report. Consumers, they write in responses on different factors affecting the economy. So when they got these written responses, they skewed towards pessimism. References to prices, inflation, oil, gas, food, and grocery prices remained elevated. Mention of tariff. You know what? Let me go back here, because if you look at the wages that really went up, that was retail. That was a lot of the jobs that the younger generations had. Those wages went up a lot more than wages for like white collar. So that may explain kind of what's going on here, where they're really feeling the pinch of the purchasing power just coming home to roost after the stimmy checks. So then we get into the family's current, which isn't too bad, but it's all about the expectations. Those are the ones that are really getting worse. And now this makes a lot of sense. Or going over to this next article, it makes this article make more sense, is what I should have said. Check this out. This is real. I should have done a video on this all by itself, but home buyers are backing out of deals at the fastest pace in nearly a decade. A decade. So when you look at the consumer sentiment, it fits the puzzle perfectly. Sure, of course. If consumer sentiment is tanking, then all these people that were ready to buy a house were in the closing process. They're like, oh, no, we got to pump the brakes on that, because looking out into the future, it's going to be a lot worse. And I don't want to commit to a mortgage payment for the next 30 years. Here are the key talking points. More than 40,000 signed home purchase agreements were canceled in December, representing 16.3% of all homes that went under contract. 16% of the people that were in contract in December backed out. There were roughly 47% more home sellers than buyers in the market in December. I mean, at some point, that's got to reflect in prices. Atlanta saw the most contract cancellations. And I won't go through the whole article. I just wanted to give you this as another data point to kind of back up what we're seeing in consumer confidence. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on right now in private credit. We could dive into that as well. But let's go over to kind of more broadly what's happening. Everyone's talking about the Fed today, but let's be honest, the Fed's going to come out and they're going to keep rates the same. So now let's go over to CNBC and see what's happening with metals. I know that's kind of topical right now, so we'll cruise over there. Here's what changed in the new Fed statement. Here you go. Yeah, Fed holds key interest rates steady as economic view improves. According to whom? According to whom? Definitely not the labor market. Again, what they're doing is they're getting fixated on real GDP. And like we said on this channel all the time, we've got a massive delta, massive. And one of these has got to give, because you can't have negative non-farm payrolls over and over and over and over again, and crappy ADP numbers, and consumer confidence just completely tanking, and real GDP just skyrocketing. Like that dog don't hunt. One of those has to change. So either you're getting real GDP coming back down to the levels that are reflected by consumer confidence and the labor market, or we're going to have the labor market just take off, afterburners, turbocharged, and come up to, instead of, negative prints, we're printing 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 jobs per month. So what's the probability of us going from, on average over the last 6 months, let's say negative 20,000, that's according to the Fed, to a positive 200,000, 300,000 a month based on your lived experience right now and what you think of the labor market? Like, what's the probability of that? I'm sure most of you would say almost zero. So then you're stuck, or you are just put into the position, just using logic and data, that most likely the real GDP will come back down to the level that is being reflected by the labor market and things like consumer confidence, regardless of what the Fed is doing with their interest rate. Again, the Fed doesn't really affect the long end of the curve, and that's the most important interest rate for the market itself. But even then, interest rates are more a reflection of the economy. They don't control the economy. So everyone is kind of hanging their hat and keeping their fingers crossed that what's going to bail us out is lower interest rates. But that's wishful thinking, because again, the lower interest rates don't really control the economy. They're more so a reflection of what's happening. Now, another example, let me do the screen share one more time. Another example I'll give is the housing market, or at least the transactions, absolutely tanking. Again, 16% of the people backed out of their contract in December. If the economy's booming, if the labor market's on fire, you would not have that, first and foremost. But secondly, let's go over and let's remember what's actually happened with mortgage rates. So if we go to mortgage rates, and we'll just look at Freddie Mac. So you could sit there and argue that this is happening, this 16% of the people backing out because mortgage rates skyrocketed. No. Look at mortgage rates in the month of December. They actually went down. So if anything, they're flat. So you can't explain this away by higher mortgage rates when, in fact, let's go back to June of 2025, mortgage rates on the 30-year, 6.89%, where today they're trading right around 6.09. So you have all this tailwind, if you will, of mortgage rates going down, but you still see what we haven't seen in the housing market since the tail end of the GFC crash in housing. You call it 2014, 2015. I think the bottom out was 2012. But this is a major, major event. And people will try to explain it away. The bull is saying, oh, well, interest rates are high. No, they're not. They're going down. And historically, they're very, very low, right? So again, what are the probabilities that the economy or the housing market, just looking at that specifically, is bailed out by lower interest rates? Likely isn't going to happen because it's a reflection of the economy, just like we've seen over the past 6 months and what we've seen the more recent data. That wasn't bailed out by lower interest rates. So I think that's what you really have to factor into the equation when you're coming to a conclusion and doing an analysis on which major indicator is correct. Is it the labor market or is it real GDP? And just another data point that would suggest that it's actually the labor market. All right, guys, on that bombshell, I would encourage you all to check out Rebel Capitalist Live, where we're going to be talking about these things, important macroeconomic indicators, trying to help you set up your portfolio to be not only preserve your wealth, but hopefully grow your wealth into the future. Going to talk about commodities for sure. Going to be talking about precious metals. Going to be talking about real estate, all the things that are important to you from all the sharpest minds in the business. It's going to be at Rebel Capitalist Live. You can get your tickets today. The faster you get your tickets, the cheaper they are. Because as we get closer to the event, as you guys know, the ticket prices go up. So you can check that out. Let me go ahead. And again, I have to do Josh's job for him here. I'll put the link in the chat, and I myself will put the link in the description of this video. There you go in the chat. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. As always, make sure you're standing up for freedom, liberty, free market capitalism, and we'll see you in the next video.